Hi, I'm Dan, and you're listening to Catholic versus Protestant.
Usually I like to start just by having my guest introduce themselves. So if you could just talk to the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you believe, and how you came to believe it.
The Reader's Digest condensed version. Well, I started out from birth. I mean, I was always involved in the Catholic Church from the get-go, from whether it was being an altar boy to lector to being an usher, everything short of being a priest. We were very active in the church. My parents' faith is as strong as ever, and God bless them for it. As I recently was informed by actual Seventh-day Adventist person that I watch occasionally, there's going to be a lot of different flavors in the final church. I always was attracted to the Christian aspects of any church that I've participated in. See, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And to me, the difference is dogma and God said this and that's the way it is. It's like, okay, but am I allowed to get there on my own and find that truth? Or are you trying to impose something on me? And I think I was drawn to, I think keeping the Sabbath from Friday night to Saturday or Saturday evening. And that's like, again, we're introducing Seventh-day Adventist as a title. And again, yes, I associate with Seventh-day Adventist people. I got baptized in the Seventh-day Adventist church, but I have friends there that we like to look at ourselves as plain Jane vanilla Christians happening to be participating with this group. But the thing is, when it gets heated, and I don't think it's just ego, right? I think it's doctrine. If I can give you an example, I had a conversation with somebody, and so I said, do you have your Catholic Bible? And he said, oh yeah, I have one. I said, do you have a catechism? And so we got it, and I said, okay, if you mind turning to the 10 Commandments in your catechism. So we went through the first one. I'm the Lord your God. We're good on that one. Second one, thou shalt not have idols or etc. and make things of the earth. Okay. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let me go to 3 here. I'm the Lord your God, no idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord. Okay. How come that's number 2 now? Wait, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain is number 2. What happened to, okay, let's shelve that for a minute. We put 3 off to the side. Let's see what happens. And then we get down. And then the final one, the 10th, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods, manservant, woman, oxen, etc., all one. It's been split in 2. So I just let that hang there. And the answer that came back was, that's really interesting. Yeah, there's something to that. So I said, I'm just pointing it out. And they said, well, if the Holy See, and they kind of lost me right at that point, because to me, the Word of God is immutable. If you go into Daniel and it says, they shall think to change times and dates. And I'm sitting there going, you don't play around in the domain of God. There's only one person that has power over me, and that's Christ, and he's under God. So when I want to talk to God, I talk to God, or I ask Jesus to intercede on my behalf, because it's something that, I'm sure the Holy Spirit is groaning crazily to get this message across because it's important. But I mean, to think that we need to have an intercessor or a mediator on behalf of God other than Christ, to me, that's getting into dangerous territory. Again, that's not a judgment. That's simply I've arrived at that. And to me, it's like, if we can stay within those bounds, then, I said something earlier to a friend. I said, my success without your success is not a success. So if we start into this as an interview and our objective is to have a reasonable discussion, then, passion, I'm all about passion. I think passion shows you care. I think if you get a little worked up, sometimes that's, good for the blood, right? It gets it pumping. But the long and short of it is, in the end, is if we can't have discussions like this freely, we have a problem. And so for me, it's like the conversion to another form of Christianity or version of it. Yeah, it's important. It is part of who I am. And there was a process to it for a reason, but I have friends that still go to Sunday mass or Sunday church at Protestant places, and I'll join them. I'm not participating in it maybe the same way they are, but I can still appreciate their love of Christ. So, it's like, if I show something, there was an example once I was shown without getting into it, because somebody might say, oh, that's leaning a little towards anti this or that. But the example was, a woman says something to Christ. And he says, rather. He doesn't say, no, you're an old fool and like you're crazy, like, oh, what you're saying is so way off. And he says, no, rather. instead of this, why not this? And the woman just has to take it because she knows that he's explaining it because he cares about her. He wants her spiritual growth. It's important to Christ, right? I mean, it's important to, I don't know, we want to say the Buddha, we want to say all these other, they were on spiritual quests. They wanted to find something that we're all looking for, right? Now, whatever that connection is, okay. But in the end, whether it's the unified field theory, whether it's God, whether it's the great creator, whether it's, we can go in all directions, but if we arrive at the same place, truth is truth. And you can find truth in everything. And I find that if you look at 16 different groups, and you find the piece of truth that's in all of them, all of a sudden it's like, wow, they were all participating in my growth. So how's that bad again? I had an incredible experience in the forest. Like, I was on fire. I was like, this is crazy. This guy was telling me this about this crystal structures that were only here 50 years ago. We don't even know what it looks like. I see this tree and I'm just amazed. And then I get back, and then the reality of, and I guess the only way to say it is the taint on this earth. It was so overwhelming. Now, I was also coming off of some crazy medications, pharmaceuticals. So there was a lot of sweating and like stuff was coming out of me. So I know that I had a psychotic episode at the end for sure, because the change from positive to negative was so intense. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Am I even getting this right? And then I was like, look at all the destruction, right? Satan's been, he's touched these things. Look, these trees aren't even in alignment. And I was just walking around and it was pure insanity. And it was like, is that going to consume me? And then no, it was like, I know I had to walk up this thing. It was just, I don't know if it's symbolic or whatever it was, but I walked up this path and I climbed and I was like, and I got to the top. And guess what? Things weren't as crazy as I thought. I still wasn't associating with like, wow, this is great. But finally, this person that helped me through all this for the past 3 weeks just took me in and calmed me down. And then I realized as I like to set anchors, I call them, as I go through life. It's like, oh yeah, if I forget, that confirms to me like, yeah, I'm still connected to reality. And I take that compared to what I saw of my old life. It's almost like I had the choice back then. And okay, maybe I didn't choose darkness exactly, but my choice in music, my choice in attitude, my choice in how I approached people, it might not have been angry, but I'd say it wasn't angry. It was aggressive. But I mean, the music was hard rock. And I got to look back on that. And it was like, I came to a conclusion that I really didn't deserve a second chance, because it was like, thank God, God is God. And it's like 7 times Lord or 7 times 77, right? But it's like, it sort of became really apparent that I can't blow this second chance I've been given. So even though it was like a current thing, it connected with a past thing. I mean, I have to remember at 6 years old, I had an incident where I had blood poisoning and I was in the hospital. And I remember my mother thought I was far enough away so I couldn't hear, but I heard the whole conversation. And the doctor turned to my mother with a team of specialists and said, I know you're a religious woman, so the only thing we can do is tell you to pray, because there's nothing left we can do. And chances are, since it's as high as it is, it's going to enter in his main bloodstream tonight, tomorrow. It'll hit his heart and he's dead. Well, I'm still here, so that's the first thing. But that was, I really believe, the start to my getting that there's something I got, this connection with this thing called God, or this being, or this, again, 6-year-old interpretation of what I was experiencing. But it was almost like, yeah, but you almost blew that, buddy. Like you've been through, how many times have my lungs have collapsed. I've had all kinds of crazy things happening, exploding appendixes. I mean, oh yeah, okay. But and it's like, I look back now and I mean, it's beyond shame. It's beyond sorrow. It's like, I'm really not impressed with myself that I wasted all those opportunities to help people. I mean, how many years? 19 to 53, like call it 20. That's 34 years that I mean, yes, as people want to remind me, but you were a kind person. But I was not the person I'm not even that person now, but I look at this now compared to what I was. And this is life changing. This is completely different. This is like, wow, you had these experiences and you were spared, I called it the exacting as opposed to the punishing. The second chance was, you're going to have to pay because you did things in your life, and that's going to have repercussions maybe into the future. So you have to be prepared for that, right? That's like, if you can't do the crime, don't do the crime. Well, if you can't afford to sin, then don't begin, right? I mean, it's like, okay, well, why am I entertaining going down that path, right? I think a lot of times we have our experiences, and when they finally gel, it all is like, yeah, now it all makes sense. But until you get there, sometimes those ups and downs, I mean, they're hellish. I don't know another word to put it. I mean, you're like, how can you be so close one day and then feel so separated from the Lord? It's those experiences, those highs and lows, that either bring you to where you need to be, or you're missing it completely. Like, that's our problem. I think we don't stop. It's like, be still and know that I am God. I mean, let me tell you, when you're in the forest, it's very easy to be still and know your God is right there. And I get through this thing, and I come out of it, and I go, this is what I was meant to have as people of God. We have an entitlement. We have a birthright, and that is an abundance. We have an abundance due to us in clean air, clean food, clean water, and proper living. That we're supposed to do that in abundance, right? And I mean, can you do that in the city? I believe it's possible. It's hard when the air is brown, but like, I got an oxygen tank. I'm not afraid to use it every so often just to equalize things, because I had major lung problems and I don't want them anymore. They've been taken from me by God's grace. I mean, I've had so many physical ailments that I don't even want to discuss anymore, because they seem so, it's so long ago, and it's weeks, but the reality is like, when you got to play catch up, it's all of a sudden like you're connecting and you're making these connections to the past, and you're sitting there going, wow, I did know that way back, but I didn't take the gift that was given me. I mean, if all of this stuff that we're given from God is supposed to be a gift, then shouldn't it feel like a gift? Shouldn't it not feel like a burden? Shouldn't, when we're discussing things and we're having a healthy discussion, okay, it gets a little emotional, fine. People want to celebrate on Sunday. I disagree with it. I remember a good friend said to me, this was the funny thing. It was a Catholic friend of mine that said, have you ever read, and I believe he said it's the Encyclopedia of Catholicism, or that it's something to that effect. And I just remember page 796, I think. It was something about the Catholic Church acknowledges that the true Sabbath is the Jewish one, Friday to sunset to sunset. But how many people know that? Right? Because why is it at 796 when the fourth commandment says remember, the only commandment that says remember to keep holy the Sabbath day? So, it's not about, oh, you're wrong because you're doing this, or I'm right, or I'm wrong, or you're right. It's like, how does the Bible put it? Friend, let us reason together. So if I show you something and it inspires you, or you show me something and it inspires me spiritually, wasn't that a lot better than, oh, you're so full of it because you're that denomination, or I'm this denomination, we know better? I mean, I've seen some pretty arrogant Seventh-day Adventists, I'll be honest with you. They make me sick, so it's not, that's my group, but is it my responsibility in church when I see an injustice happening to stand up and say, this requires correction? Of course. So, I mean, are you going to be popular? I don't want to be popular with people. I want to be popular with God, and to me, in the end, that's what it's really about. So, the God-person connection seems to have gotten so distorted that we have to have a group identity, and we don't even start with an individual identity with God, right? I mean, it's supposed to be a personal relationship you have with God. This is like, every denomination, every belief system. I mean, people that weren't religious, there are people that had doctrine that was that. It wasn't about deception. It wasn't about, oh, well, you wear this and you shouldn't wear jewelry and you wear makeup and you shouldn't. I mean, really? That's what we're getting into? That's what distinguishes us from being one better Christian than another? No, I think the Spirit inside you, I think how converted in your heart, and how convicted you are. I think that's a word we don't use, jail, conviction. But, to be imprisoned with God, I mean, Paul put it that way, right? It was like, I'm a prisoner of Christ. I'm a prisoner of the Lord. I mean, that's bold, Are we bold in our beliefs? I don't care what you believe. At least be sincere, and if you really believe that, then you might have something to teach me. But for me, when I challenged certain questions that couldn't be responded to in a way that I could understand it, that's when I started seeking. So, the gap between, say, 2010, where I sort of maybe committed a little more to the sort of Seventh-day Adventist way, It was only after 98. So, there's 12 years of searching. I mean, I went to churches, I went, temples. It was like, I said, there's something feels like there's more to this than what I've experienced.
Did you always believe in God and the triune God?
Well, like I said, I think 6 years old, that sealed it for this entity called God. Now, is it the triune God? And again, we get into words, Trinity, triune. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I know some people that do in a lot of different flavors. Do I need to make a symbol? Okay, maybe that I don't agree with, or not I don't. See, again, words, right? It's not I don't agree with. That's not for me.
The sign of the cross.
I'm talking about making a sign saying the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, or the Orthodox where they go the other way twice. Or it's like, I get it. And for some people, it's very important. And I respect that. So that's not an issue for me. But again, saying what's right for me in my change from one to another. And again, I am hesitant to say that I'm this now, because it seems like I want to draw a line in the sand, and I don't. I want to be a Christian. And Christians, like, I've said to Catholics that have come up to me, oh, you're a Protestant. And I said, no, I'm a Christian. If you're a Christian too, why don't we start there? And most people that are reasonable start there and say, oh yeah, well, we have a lot in common. And I say, yeah, and the reason I just changed this is this. And if they want to have a discussion, no problem. But if we want to sit down and go, well, the reason you changed, I don't agree with it. Okay, well, it's not your change. It was mine. It's a personal growth. It's my personal experience. And again, I have to keep bringing it back. It's my personal relationship with God. And people are like, you mean with your God? Okay, words, if that makes you happy, it's my personal relationship with my God. But if we don't all individually have that, I don't see how we can have a collective, regardless of what flavor it is. Because if you don't have, what is it? Be with people of like mind. So does that mean doctrine has to get in the way? No. Is it supposed to get in the way? I don't believe so. I think everybody should be converting. It means you have an active spiritual life. You're trying to grow. And to me, that's why it's like everybody has to be allowed the time that they need for their spiritual growth, assuming it's God's plan that they're going to have that allotment of time. But for me, the conversion it wasn't so much of a conversion as, oh, this is a little bit more aligned with where I'm going. And at this point, and it's not, oh, that's what suits you. Oh yes, religions of convenience. No, that's where I'm going. It's that simple. We don't have to complicate this. A conversion. Yes, I converted. But what, I became a different type of Christian from one Christian? Is that the conversion? No, you were, and I know doctrine. Sorry, I forgot. Let me sign my paper here. Here you go. But it's like, no, my conversion was very soft. It was so quiet. It was loud. Like, oh, wow, that's it? That's what I've been trying. Oh, okay. And where did I get that from? Oh, some little Hindu guy that was passing by that I said hi to and treated with respect. And he gave me a gift. I'm supposed to reject that because it didn't come from my source. No, come on, people. The bride of Christ, the church, is made up of different aspects. If you prophesy, then prophesy. If people, in other words, if you do what you do and it's part of the church and it works, keep on doing it because that's for the benefit of everybody. If things are for the magnifying, the amplification of somebody's spiritual reality, upbuilding, perfect. It's like we're so ready to destroy things, right? And yes, sometimes you have to remove an old building because it's just decrepit and everything. So you have to get rid of those old ways. But more often than not, you just got to give it a little tender love and modify and just, oh, well, I'm going this way. And the next thing you know, you've got friends of Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish, and they're all behind you, Muslims, and we're going in the same direction. So for me, it's like, conversion, yeah, but it sounds like a word that's supposed to be really hard. And it's like, oh, I had to struggle. Yeah, of course I struggled. I'm happier. I'm in a place with God that I've never been. I experience God in my DNA now. It's not just a the word. It's not just a thought. It's not just, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Maybe I should adopt that. Whoa, the Lord's trying to tell me something? This is important. Like if I'm expected to grow, I got to listen. And if I'm not listening to everything that's around me, is there a chance I'm going to miss something? I say, yeah. I say there's a good chance you're going to miss quite important things, and I think that's what, conversion, again, that word, it's very simple, but the connotations that go with that, oh my gosh, well, you're not one of us anymore. Well, you're one of them. Why do we have to do that label thing? It detracts from being Christian. So in terms of conversion, yeah. Do I still hold some of the Catholic principles high in my, yeah, because they're Christian principles. That's why I'm on fire. That's why I feel this. That's the Holy Spirit running through me and going, hey, it's time for you to do something. And I'm like, what do you want, Lord? And that's recent. I mean, before my leaving, I was in a pretty bad place physically and emotionally in a lot of places. But spiritually, that was the only thing that kept me alive for, I mean, when they gave me 3 to 5 years to live, and I made it to 7 before the oxycodone actually made my lungs collapse, and literally I was rushed to the hospital. And they pretty much pronounced it then that was the last time. Yeah, well, that's another year ago. My wife was kind enough to remind me of my anniversaries of my horrible experiences, that, and then coming off of it because I had to quit cold turkey. And the only thing I could say is if somebody wants to know when I got set on fire, that was that day, because I was going through, and to quote a friend, a former, let's say, opiate user, yeah, it's like somebody wants to come through the back of your head and rip the base of your ganglia thing, nerve thing, and just rip it. I go, yeah, that's madness. I said, oh, this is what possession feels like. Okay. But it was like I was going insane. I was in the other room, so I didn't disturb my wife. And I knew I was going to be flailing about, but it was horrible. My mother had asked me, and my mother's one of the most gentle people I've ever known and has been a rock in my spiritual development, that's for sure. So kudos to, and my father too. I mean, he gave me spiritual gifts at an early age, and my mother's seen to tending to them, I guess. But this, again, part of that fire and things, right? It's like, I was sitting there going, I can't go through this, Lord. There's no way. I'm going insane. And my mom's like, was it really that bad, Danny? And I'm like, Mom, I love you. She said, of course. I'd never heard it. I wouldn't even think it. She said, of course. What, Danny, what? I said, Mom, if you were there and looked at me the wrong way, I probably would have punched you in the face and maybe just kept going, because that's all the rage was. It was insanity. And then I was like, Lord, I can't do this, to the point where I was in tears. Finally, I'd humbled myself and said, okay, now you're going to learn what trust in God is about. And it was like, okay, I'm sending you strength. And I'm like, Lord, I don't need strength. I need to get out of this crazy. And then it was like, calm. I'm sending you courage. I was like, okay, he's got a plan. It didn't make sense to me. But the next thing I know, I was up walking. And I was like, okay, this is supernatural. There's no way I could do this on my own. My muscles are literally, I can still see them shaking. They're like locking up, and I'm walking. And I walked up and down the hall for, I don't know, maybe a few minutes. And I just burst into tears. And I just turned, as if I had to turn physically to look at him and say, Lord, is that you? And the answer I got back was, who else would be here in such a great time of need? And if that doesn't set you on fire, I think you have nerve damage. And I do, man. And I still felt that fire. Okay. But, that would be, I'd say that was a key pivotal point in terms of my trust in God. And therefore that fire just and that would be, 2016.
How long were the withdrawal symptoms? Hours, days?
And that's the thing that's hilarious, is people said I should have gone through this much longer. I had really bad for a day and a half to 2 days. It was diminishing, and then I had the clean out, and that was horrible because, there was stuff coming out of me that was ungodly. That's all I can say. And that was all because of the medication. I was starting to detox, and it was coming out. So I called an organization. They're a center that helps people recover from addictions and things like that. And what I found interesting is there was one person that wanted me sort of to make a decision or get off the appointment. And it was like, I said, okay, well, I was told that you're going to just put my name in and keep it on file for 2 months. That was a weird reception. And then I get a call back from a woman. She goes, yeah, sorry, I don't know what that was about, and she had asked me, so how was it going? And how was I going about my detox and whatever? So I gave her a list of the things. And then the lady told me, she said, wow, I'm really impressed. And I said, why? Because I'm getting them right? She says, no, because you came up with 2 things we never even thought of. The detoxing list was, you're going to go through a lot of crazy stuff. So you need to maintain your electrolytes. There was natural herbs and teas and things that could help calm certain things. There was a lot of expulsion of things, both through vomit and otherwise. And that list was sort of like the go-to list that this is what you're going to experience in the next couple of weeks. So don't freak out. And, but it was like God was giving it to me in a way so that I was like, not only would I not freak out, it was like, I'm going to be with you. So it was like, oh yeah, okay, right. So I trust you. I got to keep reminding myself, oh yeah, I trust God implicitly, right? And there shouldn't be a question mark. So it's, I trust God implicitly, period. You know, there's times fires are meant to burn people. It's meant to singe off that. I mean, I had to get sunburn to get rid of gray-green skin. And it says, look underneath. It's all new and pink and soft. And I was like, yeah, purging, fire, cleansing, these concepts, right? So yeah, maybe sometimes we need to get maybe spiritually burnt or whatever you want to call it. But if it's for that greater good, then man, that fire, you can't contain it because it's not meant to be contained. You know, the light on the hill is supposed to shine brightly, right? It's not supposed to be a little, oh, I think there's a light up there, so it's so dark. Yeah, okay, I think that's the mountain. No, it's like, hey man, this is the mountain and look at me. You know, this is God lighting me up. Okay. It's really important, my relationship with God. And that's what needs to be first and foremost in my thing. So if that passion and fire dims, I get really concerned because that is like something I can't take for granted anymore. You know, it's like when God goes, hey, and charges you up. It's like, what do you want me to do, Lord? You know, my prayer usually is start the day and it's like, Lord, if I'm to be in service today, which I'd love to, I'm feeling great. So please use me. But if I am, then let me do so humbly and happily and let it be an experience that both of us, again, my success without your success is not a success. And to me, that's like Jesus saying that to me, right? Like, yeah, he's great. Oh yeah, he ascended. He resurrected. Right on. We got to but what's the point if nobody makes it to heaven? Right? That, like, it's not fire. If that's fire, then you should be crispy. Your skin should be burnt. I mean, we should be like enthralled, right? I mean, again, passion. I'm sorry. I get worked up because it's like, you know, but it's that important to me. And it's like, to me, that's conversion, right? So what religion, whatever, what denomination? Yeah. But the conversion in my heart, that's like, oh, I want to hug people and just say, here, feel this. Whoa. And if you want that, there's more. And if not, have a great day. God bless you. And I'll pray for you quietly, you know, but no, I think having a passion is like, you know, but if everybody doesn't have that passion, does that mean they're not real Christians? Oh, people, please. You know, this is a journey I'm on. Okay. Not a destination. Well, I'm hoping my destination is heaven or whatever it's eternal.
Being with God.
Being with God. Wonderful. Okay. But coming off that stuff really kind of set that fire really ablaze. So
I want to get your opinion on religious unity. Jesus famously said he prayed to God the Father that they may be one as you and I are one.
Well, I think the final body of Christ, the final church, will be made up of many different denominations, that of which I am, I guess as much as I can say with faith and belief that anything is 100% sure, that I believe 100%. Okay.
St. Augustine famously said, by the way, that a lot of people that you think are in the church are outside of the church, and a lot of people that you think are outside of the church are actually in the church. So one of the dogmas of the church, which is very controversial and sort of shocking, is that there's no salvation outside of the Catholic Church. But the church also admits that we don't know who's in the church. Now, I always give my guests an opportunity, if they want to question my faith, because I'm a convert to Catholicism.
Right. One of the things I always had an issue with, and it's no disrespect to Mary, she was obviously a blessed person and chosen for her spiritual beauty, is the way I put it. But I think for me, it's an issue that if I want to pray to God through Christ, then I talk to Christ. So just like, how would you, without taking it as an attack, how would that, no, you said thick skin, that's good, because this is a wonderful conversation. I want you to understand, this is a blessing for me. Yeah. I don't usually get this far with a lot of people when it comes to certain discussions and non-Catholics okay. Yeah. So, but that take about going directly to Christ, to God, versus say the saints or Mary or intermediaries.
I see you pointing your finger to Christ, and right. I love and admire you for that. And it's no different with the saints right. and with Mary. They're just, all they're doing is pointing to Jesus Christ, and all Christ is doing is pointing to God the Father. My religion is all about God the Father.
Amen.
I converted to God the Father, right. and then I joined Christianity, not because I liked it or believed it, but right. because I wanted to worship my God and I had to worship him publicly, and it was just more convenient to worship him in a Christian context, right. given that we have a Christian calendar, a Christian culture. I have obviously been educated in Christianity and I come to believe that it's true. If I came to believe that Judaism or Islam were true, I would have joined them. I would have left Christ and gone to join them.
Okay.
But I was pleasantly surprised to find out that Christianity is true, according to my fallible judgment.
I'll join you in that pile. They can jump on both of us.
I believe that Christianity is the one true religion. If I didn't, I would
Seek
stop
something else.
being
Right.
Christian.
Yeah,
I don't want to believe a lie.
I hear you.
But God the Father, I believe in God the Father unconditionally. There's nothing anyone could ever say or do to take away God the Father.
That's inspiring, just to let you know. For me, that's inspiring.
Everything else is faith, but God to me is reality.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of faith, and my faith is growing, and I am in fire for the faith like you are. There's a flame, and that flame can grow, it can shrink, and it could die.
Exactly.
It could die.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful, and we have to feed that flame, right? And don't feed the monsters, don't feed the demons, feed the flame.
Exactly. We got so much that we could do with good instead of giving it away to these things that want to take it from us.
But having said that, I want to talk a little bit about Jesus Christ when he said you have to hate yourself, you have to hate your mother, you have to hate your wife, you have to hate your brother. I include in that, you have to hate his mother, the Virgin Mary. I include her in that. We have to hate her. Why? Because she's a creature.
Right on.
But what is Christ saying when he says to hate yourself and hate your mother and to hate your brother? He's saying that relative to your love of God, which has to be number one, which is the first commandment, love your God with all your heart, and then your neighbor as yourself. I mean, Jesus said that all of the law and the prophets hang on that, depend on that, love of God first, and then love of neighbor for God's sake. So that qualifies what he said about hating yourself and hating your neighbor. It's not an absolute hatred.
I agree.
It's a relative hatred, and I like St. Augustine's take on it, where he said that there are two cities. There's a city of God, the city of man. The city of God is characterized by love of God unto contempt of self. The city of man is characterized by love of self unto contempt of God.
Right on.
And that's how I see true religion.
Good. That's inspiring. No, the reason I say that is simple is that, see, St. Paul always says that thing about die to self. And it was like, oh yeah, die to self. What does that really mean? And I really learned what that is. It's like a daily thing, right? Where you get up and you go, okay, this is this hate of self, or this, like, again, these words, like I love to sit down with the Bible in a concordance and say, okay, this is what the Jewish people were saying. This is what the Greeks were saying. Let's see what they're really saying. And there are times where everything is like word for word. But there are times where you're sitting there going, okay, wait, I've just like started the sentence and I found 3 different things that totally change the context and meaning of this. And then it's like, so for self-improvement, I do that. But I also find it leads me to things where, like, listening to your answer, I was like, okay, don't interrupt him. He's saying really good things here. This is good. I understand that. And it's like, oh yeah. And it's, oh yeah, we're in line. Yeah, because we're Christians trying to have a conversation about Christians, and we're not here trying to attack each other. And it's like so refreshing that you can be so clear and concise about your belief that, like, sometimes people, you ask them, why do you believe? And it's a story. And I mean, I guess it has to be because that's how they get it out. But yours was like really concise. And to me, that's fire. That's passion. You know what it is. And you're like, yeah, that's what drives me. If God is your central focus and you're really connected with God, then God's going to show you what's right. And God's going to direct you in the right place. And you're going to end up doing things the way God wants you to get there, because he's going to talk to you differently. He's going to talk to me. Yes, we're human beings and we'll have those intersecting points. But again, through my ages of studying different Zen or Buddhists or whatever, there was this fellow, an older fellow and a younger fellow, and he had this cup. And the younger one wanted to come in and tell him about how great he was, and look at what I've known, look at how enlightened I am. And the old guy was trying to say, oh, we'll go through it. So he goes through and the guy's going on. So he says, would you like tea? And he says, yes, I would like that very much. So the older one starts pouring the tea. And the guy says, okay, that's good. No, stop. And he keeps pouring, and it goes all over the place. And the guy goes, what are you doing, old man? And he says, like this cup, you are full of so many ideas and you're overflowing with them. There's no room for anything new to get in there. And I thought, you know what? That was one of those, oh yeah, that was a Zen thing or whatever. And now I find the Christian equivalent and I go, bingo. So it's like, oh, that truth from I find from 16 different beliefs or religions. There we are, right? There's one where it's like, if we don't empty our cup every day, how is Christ supposed to get in there? And it's like, if you put your fingers in your ears, how are you supposed to hear traffic and you're going to get hit, right? Like, it's just dangerous to not pull your fingers out and say, okay, Lord, what do you want from me today? And how do I clean myself out so that I'm prepared to accept you? And that was just, it was inspiring. Thank you. It was, you know what? I think blessings are supposed to go both ways. So I hope in the end, this will be a blessing to you. But,
that's why I do this.
Amen. So be it. I agree. It's like, if anybody is as receptive as you are, and anybody is as
We could use words logical, clear-minded, rational. I would love to, please. I'll leave my email address. Feel free. But, even the haters, it's like, I feel bad that they don't have what I have, right? And see, I think that's the thing about, as a Christian or as any spiritual person that's supposed to make a dent in this world, it's like people will see your example. If you're charged up, you can't fake that, right? It's like, is how you fake that? Oh yeah, I can fake it here. Here's a couple of Red Bulls. Yeah, no, that's like, that's a completely different. Again, but you see, and that's, I think, the problem with a lot of this is we see things and we're so ready to put a label on them. We forget to actually find out what it means before we put a label on and go, oh, I had the wrong label to begin with. So coming back sort of in a roundabout way about Catholic versus Protestant, I think as long as those are labels that we all associate and understand are labels and that we're on the same quest and we're trying to get closer to God, I think, man, we could have a lot of great conversations. And I would say I pray for this podcast, not mine, that this session I'm talking about in general, that this reaches so many people because I'm participating as an active member and I'm finding this mind-blowing and finding this beyond engaging. This is what we should be doing, right? What a way to spend Sabbath. Hey, you're starting Sabbath, Dan? Yeah, I'm starting Sabbath. Guess what? We're not talking about money. We're not getting distracted with all these crazy things. TV's nowhere near to be seen that I can tell. And we have time with God. And it's like, wow. Like, what a gift. And, I think that's the problem. It's not, are you an optimist or a pessimist? I say to people, I'm a realist. And they go, what does that mean? So when you say the bottle's half empty and he says it's half full, I say, if you want 10 cents, you have to bring it back to Maine. And some people get it and some people don't, right? But my thing is I try to be optimistically realistic, I think is the best way to put it. And that is, you know what? If we're walking hand in hand or shoulder to shoulder, it's a lot better than fist to fist. And it's like, if we can't get together as Christians, how are we supposed to be an example for our own, never mind everybody else? How are we, if we're going to argue against each other and it's like, oh, well, yeah, but you believe this. And really, is mine so much different? Is it really that skewed that it's like, oh, no, wait, yeah, I can see the connection. See, I think when we're trying to make more connections, instead of disconnecting, and we connect with other creatures of God, we get to know God better. Because you know God differently than I do. And a lot of it may be similar and a lot of it we approach the same way, but it has to be different. That's why it's a personal relationship. And I'm sorry, it sounds like I'm harping on that. But to me, I think that's what will bring you closer to the truth. Is that when you're, like you say, you're on fire. I see it, right? It's a quiet, contained thing. And when it comes out, it's wonderful. And I should learn that calm, I guess. I'm working on that. Work in process. But, I think that if we can have this kind of engagement, and more so with the youth of today, especially, that they don't feel threatened, that they feel invited, that they don't feel looked down upon and chastised, that they feel lifted up. Because I know one thing, God wants you to get it done. He's going to make the resources available. He's going to make the opportunity available. And all you got to do is show up and do the work. Thy will be done, Lord, and let my work follow.
I always, at the end of my interview, I ask my guests to give a little closing thought, just to speak directly to the audience. So what would you say to anyone that's listening?
Look, there is always hope. You can get into a very dark place very quickly, but to have a glimmer of hope means they have something inside. It's that spark. Maybe it's not a flame, but it's a spark. If this podcast can't be a blessing to somebody, then I pray that at least it's an inspiration, because sometimes a spark with just a little fan will turn into something so fast because the kindling is already there. They've got to a place where they don't see the possibility of fire anymore. But it just takes, and that thing flames, and these people will see things and they will understand things. Look, if you see a light, it's because there's a light there. And if there's a light there, focus on the light. Don't get involved in the darkness. The brighter the light gets, the closer you get to God, to Source, to the Creator, to whatever we call it, that can take you places that you never thought you could go. And I think that's the purpose of a podcast like this. It's not to tell you what's right and wrong. It's not to tell you that you should do this or should do that. It's to say, hey folks, this is where I found it. Where did you find it? Oh, you haven't found it? Would you like to find it? And as we know, the truth shall make you free and shall set you free, and every other version of it. There's a reason why truth is a gift. And this podcast, I believe, is filled with a trove of gifts for those that might be in a dark place.
those that are willing to just say, this is enough. People, you want to see my medical records? I'll tell you what's enough. When you can't get out of bed with the medication, you're done, man. And you know, I remember sitting in a car, I can end on this. I remember sitting in my car going, I've had it. I'm done. I'm not getting out. I'm not doing anything anymore. I've had it. Like, really, Lord? This is where I am? And I remember the only thing I could think of, again, God bless her, I called my mom and she talked me off the ledge, so to speak. And it was like, you know, it's okay. You can feel what you're feeling. We all feel darkness. We all feel alone. We feel disconnected. But it's temporary, folks. Or it can be, because it is a choice in the end. God bless you for this.
If you like your worldview, if you think it's swell, if you got some questions, ask me and I'll tell. All you got to do is ask. All you got to do is